What up, everybody? Last Descent of the Yasuke.
Yes.
Sub over dub for all anime.
Yes.
Salsa dancing ninja. Stay on his toes. Got a sake flight ready to go. It's your boy, Hawkins Hanzo.
J-Hawk!
That's right. And I'm not by myself. Of course not, because it's the Blurb Bar.
And it's in my house.
Passing it over to the man of the house. It's your boy. Talk to him real quick.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
You already know who it is. It's Big Dan.
Big Dan.
Rodan. I'm coming to you live from the 215. Your comic book connoisseur, your Somali of sci-fi and superheroes. That's right. I said live from the 215.
Mm-hmm.
That's also Ichi ni. Nope. Ni Ichi go would be saying 215 in Japanese.
See.
Ni Ichi go. One of these days I'll get it right.
Do it.
And then it'll be in my intro. But yes.
Bars.
Oh, it
And
rhymed
lines.
too, right?
I didn't call bars.
No, but it's I was getting ready to introduce you because you were ready to come in.
Yes.
It is Queen Cobb.
Yes.
Talk to him.
What's up, y'all? It's Queen Cobb, a.k.a. Queen Anti-Flex, a.k.a. the video game Ventress, coming at you live from the Blurred Bar. How y'all doing?
She chose that sound. We won't change it.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. Listen, how we doing?
Doing real good, man.
Doing
It's
real
been a
good?
Good week.
Good
I have
week.
to say, nothing really. No news is good news. You know what I'm saying?
That's good. Until there is news, and then
Then it's
news.
boom.
That maybe I'll go on Booze News and Reviews.
Hey,
Because we have one of
Bars.
those. Don DeMarco. No, anyway.
Maybach music.
I spit real mean. No. Anyway, I'm good. How are you?
I am good as well. But one thing I'm learning, or I know, is that good is not a feeling, right?
It's a state.
It's a state that is informed by feelings.
Bars.
Yes. So right now, I would say I'm excited. I'm tired, but excited.
Hey,
I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling warm. And also I'm a bit appalled by this drink that I'm engaging in that tastes strangely like sugar.
Well, that's what rum is.
I'm not a rum person. So also like trying new things. So today is a good day and it's been a good week. So
Which is wild because you picked up the bottle and just like, I'm going to go ahead and pour it.
there's no other way. I mean, it's all poured the same for the most part. It's just
Hey. It comes out of a bottle, goes into a cup.
and goes into our bodies, which need these things to survive when times are hard and when times are good,
okay.
right?
There it
Okay.
is.
Yeah, I was like,
connection.
need.
And we can unpack that later.
Or not.
But no, I'm
Out of
good.
a bottle
I'm feeling good
into a
today. I'm
cup.
feeling good because of
Next
those
thing you know,
feelings.
Bottoms are up.
No, they're not.
Yeah, bottoms are up. Like bottoms up.
Oh, the
Bottoms
bottoms
up?
of the bottle.
Yeah, keep your mind out of the gutter.
No, I just said no, they aren't. That's all I said.
Okay.
Maybe they're like, very parallel to the cup. Some people pour that way. Anyway, did y'all see this article
The article of
about
bull?
About the bull?
Nah, that's disrespectful.
Might
That
be.
is not. He's
And
not the
that's
bull.
exactly why the article was written.
Ah.
Because he's the bull. So let's talk about BuzzFeed for a
Okay.
minute.
Right. Well, BuzzFeed
As valid,
identified him
real
as the
news.
bull. No.
Real news.
But
They made
BuzzFeed had an
They made a
released an article based on, I'm guessing, his Caleb McLaughlin's
feelings.
And
So wait, I don't know if they. So yes, they published the article, but I think
it was an interview at some point.
Yeah, he had feelings, and so
They just sort of collected a bunch of information and made their own article about it. That's essentially what BuzzFeed does. Nobody reports to BuzzFeed.
Right.
But Caleb McLaughlin is a character that
Actor who plays
is
a
an
character.
actor.
That's the
Who plays a
problem. He's just seen as a character. No, he plays a character on Stranger Things. What is the character's name on Stranger Things?
Ooh, we are adults here too.
that's not good.
And the thing is, I've seen the first couple seasons. Lucas is his name. Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
There's a button here.
That fits.
That's accurate for how I feel at the moment.
That fits.
So yes, Caleb Mclaughlin plays Lucas on Stranger Things.
Yes.
And there was an article posted by BuzzFeed that says that Caleb has had these feelings. Oh, he's sort of just reflecting on the past few years being a child star and working on Stranger Things and how he's felt sort of othered. Not necessarily, I don't recall him saying that he felt that way by his co-stars. I recall him feeling othered by media outlets, maybe when he would travel to different countries, and sort of he sort of notices the difference in how he's treated versus his co-stars, and he believes that it's based solely on his race.
And it was more, well, not more, but it was fans and I guess like, I don't want to say execs, but like the suits.
Not to invalidate anyone's experience.
But wait, let's first give the evidence that
he did go on to say that, you know, he's had, you know, shorter lines in Comic-Cons.
Yep. Less Instagram followers.
Less followers on Instagram.
That's what he's, and that's that's a great. That shouldn't be your measuring stick.
Yes and no. Unfortunately, due to the industry being what it is, that is the value of your worth is based on how many followers, you know, that you have in social media. If we were doing that for the Blurred Bar here, we'd be your number 3,472 favorite podcast currently in Philadelphia.
But we're on the rise.
But we're on the rise. Nonstop out here.
The bubble.
One day at a time.
One day. But that being said.
One day at a time. That was a good show.
Yes. But I think he's accurate in feeling that way based on the fact that that's the measuring stick for the culture as far as like society and social media and, you know, celebrity. The level of celebrity that you want to have is based on your followers on social media. However, the game is rigged. We all are aware of that. And for a person of color, I wouldn't put too much stock in it, only because I know that there are other people of persons of color who don't spend time on social media because they know the game is rigged.
Do you think his little sister, or the actress who plays his little sister, is feeling the same way?
I think she might be aware of it, but I think that's only because that's how we make ourselves aware of it being in that industry.
And also she was a character that elevated throughout the season.
I was about to say that was like going to be my counterpoint because like
she became. I mean,
she was an ancillary character in the first season,
but it was like every time she showed up, and people were like, yo, you're hilarious. Like, I want more of her.
Yes, I think that she was more. And to be completely transparent, I think I'm only about halfway through the third season, so I have seen the trials and tribulations that Caleb's sister, I don't even know her name, so that's a problem. Caleb's sister has gone through with when Gayton is the actor's name. I don't remember the character's name. Oh gosh, too many characters. I don't know the character's name, but her and Gayton they have this sort of small arc together where Gayton, the one with the curly hair, was separated from the other three, and they sort of him, the sister, as well as is her name Nance?
Yes,
Nancy's ex-boyfriend have their own little story arc. And that's one thing I really like about Stranger Things is that they're focusing on different sets of characters at a time, and they all play a part in the main story, and that's really what I enjoy about the show. And I feel like the sister that was her time to shine, so her career has only elevated.
Right.
However, Caleb's character, my opinions on Lucas is that I think that this is mostly on writers, right? Like I think it's on writers. I think that he's not a character that is, based on what I've seen, written very well. I appreciate his cynicism in the first season and just overall as a character that just like questions things. Like he was the only character that's like, I'm not sure about 11. This random girl who appears,
which is very. And not to
and black,
right.
right?
I was about to say it's very black. Of
It's
him.
it's very black, but I think that the character
It's on brand.
It's on brand, but I think that the character that's always the cynical character or the suspicious character and the character that doesn't want to take as many risks, that gets boring. I think it has its utility.
You play the straight man.
Yeah, and it's like he's not. I think like in Stranger Things, the characters are all, even the adults are all adventurous in a way, and I think
But that's his own brand for white people.
Sure, I mean maybe he has to be, but it's like I think he can be adventurous, and there has been moments where he has been adventurous, and he's an important character. Like he has made material changes, but I think he's just not. To me, I'm not trying to invalidate his feelings about feeling racialized and othered by people around him, but I think in terms of just writing, I don't think that he was interesting. He could have easily been Will's character, the one that sort of disappeared the first season, that was like taken to the Upside Down. That could have been him, but why does he have to be this character that just
exists?
He exists, but he plays I'm not trying to invalidate or dismiss his importance, but I think he's just that character that's always angry, that's always cynical, and also you're made to love Eleven, and he was a character that did not. So I think like the writers sort of force you to it creates opposition against the oppositional character. And I think that unfortunately the fandom assumes that that's maybe how they are in real life.
I don't think so. Because I'm a big supporter of Caleb and hopes and strong hopes that he continues to grow in the industry. Just because I would love to see him play a lot of the characters that I see in comic books. One, because he has the youthfulness that would be able to translate for years to come.
But he also has shown depth, with as much depth as you can. Like he's been opposite Idris Elba.
Yeah, no, he has range. Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we watched him. We reviewed that movie before. Mm-hmm. I think is that
the cowboy film?
Yes,
Concrete
Cowboy in Philly.
The trajectory of his career can only also be going up. As long as he continues to kind of stay focused on that. I don't think weighing yourself against the other cast or main cast of this show is enough to really encapsulate where you're supposed to be.
Because they're gonna, and I think two things. One, writing, I totally agree. I don't hate him. I don't hate his character. I just think that like it wasn't your show. Like you are like not for nothing secondary to the characters who they have written the story around. And it just is what it is. And also you are not, you are token, right? So it's like that they're going to gravitate towards what they know. And I just hope that he doesn't. I hope that this article caught him at a moment where, for whatever reason, he doesn't keep on going with this feeling and this chip on his shoulder of like, nah, you just out to get me, yada, yada, yada. It's like, nah, bro, like, you keep doing you. Like, John Boyega is out there. Like, David Washington? Like, he's out. Like, John David Washington. Like, these people are out here that, like, have been doing the craft. Jonathan Majors, right? Like, they've been doing the craft and perfecting their craft. And, like, when it's time to show up, they get recognized.
And you may not get
what's
that
the
chance.
Other dude? Judas and the Black Messiah, both of them, actually.
The English?
Daniel
Kaluuya. And Atlanta.
Lakeith
Stanfield. Like, and even
really, I don't
even
know why
Bull.
We're doing like so
Brian,
bad with names at the moment.
Brian
names are hard to come up with.
From Atlanta, Paperboy.
Oh yeah.
His name starts with a last name.
It's Brian.
Brian with a W at the end.
But like, you know what I mean? So like
Tyree Howard, right? Brian Tyree Howard. Is that what
that sounds about right? But like these people,
I don't want to get it wrong. So
the guy from Atlanta.
That's not enough.
But like, so what my point is, like, these young, like, because honestly they're all like what, from 27 to 35 maybe. Like, these actors are out here getting the work. So it's like I hope he doesn't internalize this.
Tyree Henry.
Whoa, Brian Tyree Henry or
Brian
just
Tyree.
Tyree?
Brian Tyree.
Oh,
Henry.
Brian Tyree. Okay, so
I agree with you. But I think also like with to my knowledge, this at least was his breakthrough. Maybe he had other.
He has. He was in the New Edition biopic. Where he
was that before? Was that
Caleb?
before Stranger Things?
No, that was after his popularity.
Yeah, but I'm saying like Stranger Things was one of his first huge
pop off.
That was most of them got
right. But I think like also like in the industry, and also like in the BuzzFeed article, he said that his parents even said that you're just the black kid. So he's getting these messages not only from what he is feeling from fans, but also like from the people that are in his corner. And that is, he probably internalized that too. And also like your first big break, like your entire world and your entire audience is white people, right? So you are going to, it being the token, you are going to feel that. No matter how much the people around you love you, you're going to feel this, like, yo, I'm black here.
Mm-hmm. And being a minority to represent other minorities will also make you feel segregated.
Certainly, because it's like you have to...
Because you have to make sure you also have to make sure you're representing a very specific type within that representation.
You gotta be Will Smith.
You have a responsibility, and I think we're gonna talk about that soon. But I think like he needs to find maybe some black allies in the film industry, and you named plenty. But I think maybe as he sort of gets his feet wet and gets more roles and spends more time in the industry and maybe finds his niche, I think I hope that he feels more supported. But this feeling of I feel like I'm black here. It's like, yeah.
It is what it is, my guy.
It's so I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do not want to speak for you. Yeah. It's not purely. It's racial motivated, but not with ill content or ill motivations.
It can be.
It doesn't have to be, though.
But it doesn't. It's about
how it's how he feels. Right?
I don't think it matters either way.
These are his words. There's not really any evidence that it's racial. This article gave no direct evidence that it's because he's black. A lot of it comes from his head and his interpretation of what's happening. But we as black people know that, it's probably because you're black. But we don't see, I didn't see anything about people saying, I don't want to hang out with you because you're black, or your line is short because you're black. I think a lot of it was his interpretation.
The black
of what was
kid,
happening.
I don't want his signature.
And that's valid because...
But it's also due to the fact that the reality can be just that.
And that's what I'm saying.
It can be that you're black, and it may always be that case.
Yes.
Move on. Take the W.
That's tough. He's young.
Or the L.
His first
or the L. But the realistic part of the fact of the matter is that you're still a minority, right? We haven't made it yet.
But he is someone that grew up on television around white people.
Yeah.
Like we kind of got to give him. I try not to give any rich people the benefit of the doubt, but he grew up. His first role, his break was being the black kid, and now he's facing. He's reaped the benefits. He's gotten the benefits of that.
I would also make an argument
and all of
the
that.
whole picture of it.
Everything.
Yeah.
I'd also make an argument in favor of his case is that he was a kid when this started.
Right.
And his mindset as an adult has started to transition to recognize that the reality is that not everybody's going to find you special. You ran the hype train for Stranger Things with the rest of your crew because you was with them.
But all three of them are special.
But
Gaten, I don't know his name. He has his like charm about him.
Right.
Who are you talking about?
Gaten is the one that has the condition. He's not only, obviously he's more than just his condition.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Okay, so that kid,
Dustin.
He also comes through and this might be writing, but like his character comes through as memorable.
Yeah.
The thoughts.
You're made to have feelings towards him. Feel, he even has his own sense of feeling separate. Like when they weren't hanging out with him because they didn't believe that he had this girlfriend that was over like the radio in season 3, and that was when he broke off, right? So
he's also out here playing he's been working.
Yeah, but he is the intended to be the comedy relief
Right.
and the charming character of Stranger Things. Even though we
They
know
didn't
that
give
Elle,
a role to
Caleb.
Caleb.
He's the one
his
that was
token.
against and the one that was against 11. And fans internalize that, and fans treat actors like the characters they play, and that's not fair to actors. We hate actors.
Joffrey ain't out here working at all.
Of course,
Yo.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean,
But that
His
could also
fi-
be a personal choice.
His
Yeah.
feelings hurt.
he
Nah.
also like has his own thing going. I think he's doing other things, but I think like for child actors or actors in general, but mostly child actors, fans tend to see the like. Don't even get me started. I'm not talking about child actors now, but yeah, I'm always gonna bring it up. The Last of Us, the voice actors of The Last of Us were getting death threats. The people that do the voice of people that are not real were getting death threats based off of something that happened in the game that's not real. So like
on a scripted thing, by the way.
yes, and people were saying, you're the reason why my favorite character died when you just did the voice of another character and I'm getting threats. You think that I'm this character? So it's like fans are just so entitled and they see the character or the person
So
as the character.
ridiculous.
But you know what? I think that's a perfect segue to what we are actually the topic of the evening of being the
There's this
scrutiny.
responsibility, right? All
There-
eyes on
right.
you.
All eyes on you.
Keep your head up, Caleb. You're gonna get out of this.
Keeping
'cause
your
Maybe.
head up.
Or maybe you should just leave the industry. Maybe you take your
if
bread and
you,
go.
if you want to
Take the
take that
break.
industry, take that
You
break.
you already did the work.
Will is about to come to Penn, yo. He going to Penn and said, I'm going to live on campus. Will, the guy who plays Will Byers, the troll, the internet troll, the most popular one, even though he was incredibly boring on Stranger Things, is going to University of Penn.
The kid who got kidnapped
Yes.
into the upside down.
Yeah. He's going to Penn and is saying, I'm finna live in the city.
Caleb, you do you, man. You show promise. So hopefully,
Either way,
you do you.
yeah. Factual or not, if it's something you feel,
It's real.
Yeah.
it's real to you.
Perception
So-
is literally reality.
It's your reality, at least.
And maybe others, because that impacts how you treat others.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, I mean, I hope that he doesn't always have to feel this way. I hope that something can make him feel like a sense of belonging in this industry where there's not.
Same.
But I think I got the sense that it's like, okay, racism, yeah. Yep, racism.
It
You're
happens.
not, yep, it be happening, yo.
Unfortunately.
But my segue was going to be
Sorry.
the edutainment and the deep criticism that Black edutainment often faces in contrast to its counterparts.
What is edutainment?
I'm going to explain what edutainment is. A good example.
How are you now?
Right.
Hey, Dan, what is edutainment?
What is it? Well, I'll tell you. Edutainment, best examples of it would be in recent days or weeks or months would be like movies like The Woman King,
Okay.
or Gangs of New York, Titanic, movies that are based either strongly or loosely based in history, but have fictional derivatives within them. Therefore, liberties have been taken that obviously don't allow for all of the movie to be pure fact. Therefore, it's educational in the fact that it gives you topic and
So dramatization as well as like a historical context.
correct.
So I was gonna say, so like Django Unchained, that would be
Purely
either-
entertainment
that would be
because
purely
there's
entertainment? There's never been a story,
I don't believe Django was a historical character. There's
but 12 Years a Slave,
edutainment.
Yes. That's
So.
based off of a
a
real
book,
story.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
So I say all this to say largely based on the fact that we reviewed The Woman King, and I thought about it longer. There's all these hashtags about boycott The Woman King, and I'm like, well, why? And they're like,
People were upset.
Why are people upset?
well, people are upset due to the fact that the Kingdom of Dahomey is historically known for being one of the last kingdoms to hold on to like selling slaves. Like that was their biggest export.
Selling slaves to who? Like amongst each other?
Portuguese, Britain,
Whoever was buying.
whoever was buying.
I see.
What are you selling?
What are you buying?
So, they were selling captured, war prisoners and things like that. To whoever was buying in, the Portuguese were like one of the last nations to buy slaves before it was banned worldwide. And then called something completely different, colonization, or indentured servants again.
And The Woman King as a movie is being criticized because it displays
because it takes place in that kingdom, in a fictionalized year in that kingdom, where rather than them address the horrors of slavery and say, "Hey, everybody, this is bad," over and over and over again, beating your head over that narrative, what they do is they very lightly discuss it. The main character.
It's a small moving point that
Naniska, right? Am I saying
Yes.
that right? She is the titular woman king. She pretty much speaks out against it and says, "Hey, we could be doing something else for our export rather than it being people." So she says, "Hey, slavery is bad," but it champions her and the Agoji warriors as people who would not take part in this practice of slavery in the kingdom of Dahomey. However, it's a fictionalized story taking place in a part of the world and a part of the time where the reality was that slavery was taking place and the slave trade was still happening.
So one question I have is, but the Woman King, the title of the Woman King itself, was that a title that was received or given by someone?
I believe
to
that
someone?
portion is correct as far as in the kingdom that was a tradition that they had.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't know. I
If it was
personally don't know.
Naniske, like
Right.
Naniska, like,
The Naniska that's referenced in history was a young girl who ended up violently killing someone who had imprisoned her. However,
shout out to her.
it wasn't. She wasn't portrayed as this warrior that
Gotcha.
the movie portrays.
But
However, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
But yeah, it was getting a lot of flack on the interwebs. The Woman King was getting a lot of flack on the interwebs because of.
I'd argue it's because of the title. I'd argue because of the plot, and the cast.
Like my cousin said, everybody who I saw who did not like it was a male, and half the time they would be like, "Nah, I'm not going." Like they either watched it and didn't like it, or weren't going to see it
To
off
be
of
informed
principle.
off of principle. I will say that there were black females who also, were on the more conservative side of life, and were saying to boycott this movie as well.
So
The Candace Owens, if not, and I don't want to marginalize people, but I have I have an issue with it due to the fact that instead of telling people to boycott it, let people go see it, or even don't inform their decisions and allow them to
and then have the discourse.
not even just the discourse, do your own research. That is the biggest thing you can do. While there is a lot of misinformation on the internet, you can find sources.
So was the issue with the film about what was a factual or what was based on something that was real, or was the issue in how because I haven't seen the film yet, full transparency.
The issue is based largely on how they did not gripe largely on the evilness of the African slave trade.
And or the evilness of the country of Dahomey.
Right.
So, and that kind of it I think it centers the question on this film, but also black films in general, and maybe just film in general. Is we know that there's power in art and there's power in film, and we know that with that power comes responsibility, right? So what is really the response? Is there a responsibility on this film that is really just designed to just make money, right? To tell a story, to dramatize a story, and to make money off of the story? What is there a response? If your point is to make money, is to gain profit, is there a responsibility?
I would argue it isn't.
I would argue that there are many people who make the movie who have different motives.
Yeah.
One
Really?
like the director or the people who like really who
wanna
like,
see
this
this.
is a
Yeah.
this is a great story. Like they probably want to open the door to the discussion of what happened. The movie theater or the movie producer, the producing company that like greenlights that movie, they're like,
Sony.
but how are we going to make money?
Right.
And the director's like, well, look, this is how we do. Because I still think like everyone, despite them wanting to tell a story that is as close to accurate as possible, or that includes people that this impacts, even though their desire is to make it as non-problematic as possible, ultimately it is because your goal is to gain profit. Your gain is to make more than what your budget was, to gross more than what your budget was. So then it's like ultimately your goal is to just profit. Ultimately,
I don't know. I wouldn't make such a blanket statement of that, because unless you're Tyler Perry, Kevin Hart, Oprah, you don't have your own studio to
do that,
to even come in with that kind of energy where you are at.
what was the can we see what the budget is of The Woman King?
I'm sure we can
Also,
look it up.
can you piece that?
But yeah, like I think it's a thing of like, it's you have a story to tell, and if Sony is the only one who's chomping at the bit of like, yeah, I'll make your story, but you have to include X, Y, and Z.
But you say yes.
You
say yes because you say yes. Why? Because it's like, oh, I'd rather have this story told with these holes or these challenges to just get it out. Like, what is the reason why writers say yes to these publishers or these producers that want something different? What's the reason?
That you have to get the story out. You want to get the story out. Otherwise,
why do you want to get the story out?
Otherwise,
hear me out.
Otherwise, the only thing is it dies within you.
Hear me out though. Here's the challenge, and this is where I have issue with this movie, particularly, in the way that how people are attacking it. If you're upset about it being a black focused film, say that. Get it out your system.
Sure.
Right. And also black woman.
Mm-hmm.
That is also probably
However,
maybe upset.
if you want to be really upset, the screenplay was written by 2 white women.
Didn't know that. The director was a black woman, I'm guessing.
Right.
But the screenplay was interesting.
I mean, it is what it is.
Because isn't the director chose second?
Yeah. I mean, the screenplay is what, gets picked up by a studio before a director does.
So does that impact how does that change how we see?
Well, the screenplay that was written,
crap,
it was
Norristown?
it was
She from Buck?
Maria, Bello and Dana Stevens were the 2 that wrote this movie. And if you know Maria Elena Bello's name, her name is on like The Mummy, The Mummy 4. So
okay.
Ugh.
Okay. So she.
I'm sorry, Mummy 3. Right.
Coyote
That was the
Ugly?
Coyote Ugly.
All right.
Grown Ups.
Grown-ups.
Yep.
So
This is her best work.
Right.
So does and this is obviously like a conversation for another time maybe, but just this idea of now that we know that white women wrote the movie.
Who was that? Kenya Barris. Only black people should write black stories.
I kind of agree, but
I agree.
The whole focus of this topic, right, was that we often take the scrutiny to the next level.
Deep dive that we just
did.
For,
right.
for the women.
But like, you can take movies like The Temptations, right, or the numerous amount of biopics done for Martin Luther King, or miniseries, Malcolm X, stuff like that. And for whatever reason, we take the microscope to it to the point where we're trying to find the whole, rather than be informed either by a film to further investigate about this person of topic or person of history. You know what you don't do a lot of times? You take movies like Lincoln at face value. You take Braveheart at face value. There's not a lot of people going and doing deep dives to find out, like, were these men in skirts really brave?
I don't disagree. I think it is not a thing of trying to find a hole. I think, especially in the age of the internet that we are in,
I would, if not a hole, I would say find a thread to unravel it, because that's often the case when it's something of color being put out to the mass market. Like movie didn't go to BET, right? Like it didn't go directly to streaming. It didn't come from Tyler Perry Studios. It went out with the intent.
BET. But I think
possibly.
I think the thing is, it's not that you're trying to find a hole or even a thread to pull at. I think because of the internet age that we live in, everybody is given a microphone. And not everyone has read as many books and done as much research as everyone else. And so these people who have done a lot of research, they might feel a certain way for whatever reason, where they're like, well, this ain't even a true story, instead of celebrating that there's a story even being made. I think when you say boycott the Woman King, I think you're overcorrecting in a way that, okay, well, if I got to boycott Woman King, what movie have you brought up? What movie have you made that is going to like
replace this?
Good. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is almost like a demonization of things going on, where it's like, this ain't right. And it's like, okay, it's not right, but it is a step. We can all agree that it's not the story, but we all agree that it is a dramatization of the story.
Right.
But I have so many perspectives here, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but again, I think it really comes back to like, what is really the responsibility of these films? Like, are they just here to, and that's the thing, there's this scrutiny on Black media, but apparently it is not Black media. It's Black directed,
it's Black
but it
media
is
based
partially
on the director and then the majority of the cast. This is why it will be branded as Black media.
But it's written by,
because the subject and the plot and the actors and the director are Black.
But one can argue, like, if it's written by someone that's not Black, does that create this sort of like fruit of the rotten tree, where it's like, if at the baseline it's written by someone that's not us, does that impact everything else, right? Does that impact?
But it's written about us
by a white person, right? Now that's not what I'm here to argue.
Right. History is often written by the victors. So
victors? What you mean victors?
That's what I said.
But here's what I'm saying though. I'm saying that I think
Sony's not run by a white.
There are many different perspectives we can look at this. I think that ultimately it helps to sort of look at like, what really is the responsibility of these movies? Like, is it to just tell a story that is based loosely off of something that might be real or that is real? Because the idea is ultimately, yes, you want to tell a story, you want to tell history, but ultimately you want to entertain. You want to keep people engaged. You want to keep people interested enough that they'll spend money. That's what I see it as. But ultimately, I'm thinking instantly of Toni Morrison, who's one of the greatest writers of all time, who said that.
What did they write?
Toni Morrison wrote Beloved.
Yeah,
that's what she's most known for. She wrote
The name sounds familiar. I'm like trying to think of like, where do I know the name?
She passed away just a couple years ago. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. Mm-hmm. And Toni Morrison said,
out here educating.
Facts. And some of her books actually got banned in jail because they said that it was too powerful and that it would incite a riot. So one thing that Toni Morrison has this very famous interview with this Australian white woman, that was saying, do you think, I can't do the accent, you probably can. Do you think that maybe you can write more about whites? Maybe? Like, maybe you'll stop writing about Black people? And Toni Morrison was just like, you don't understand how racist of a question that was. And then she just sort of went in. But ultimately, Toni Morrison's writing was, she said what was most important for her was to write books that were not for the white gaze. It is not for white people, it's for Black people. And that really stuck with me when she said that she's not interested in explaining language. She's not interested in having white people understand. She's interested in creating work and writing for Black people who already know. And I think that a lot of times, one thing I question when watching quote unquote black film is who is the audience. And a lot of times when I ask that question of who is the audience, I find that the audience is not us, right? This is written for...
Because we've been here already.
We've been here. We know the language. We don't need this idea of racism and to be explained. And I find that a lot of black media that's been popping up lately, it is made for the white audience. And I think one of the best examples that I can think of recently is an Amazon show called... Is it called They?
Them? Really?
We don't have time.
We don't, but it's going to be in an episode. You don't even know.
But that, I think, is one of the worst. It is... hey, I'm not even trying to be controversial here. I think that is not only is it objectively bad in terms of quality, but it's also not for black people. That show is for white people. Let's be real. Let us be real. It is to make white people feel bad. It's not to tell black people this is how it was or this is how it is. It's to tell white people... Look at this. Look at what y'all did.
She kind of not wrong though.
It's true.
This is a great precursor to another episode that's coming on later on in the season.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying, I think that's a good question to start from is, was this film, was this piece of writing, was this piece of media, is it really for us or is it for them?
So I don't disagree with what you were describing. Them. We will have another episode for that.
Let us.
But I'm surprised you brought up that and not Blackish.
Blackish is another example.
Oh, okay.
There are many examples.
That was the one that was like,
no,
like
I think I didn't watch it probably because of that reason where it's like, yo, who is this actually for? What are you trying to show?
But the thing is because the creator is Kenya Barris. And like he's the one that made all of the issues,
right?
And like the Black AF,
all this ish
to show white people like, yo, this is how black people are not the same. Black people are not a monolith. This is our lives. Because
so you're saying he wrote it? He had the intention of writing it
to educate white people.
It's for white people. Yeah, that doesn't mean black people won't enjoy it.
I felt like,
it's not a show for black people.
I felt like there was the energy that I felt that he gave off was that he was making it for something for, us to watch.
No, shows that were made for us to watch. I think the most recent example would probably be Atlanta, and also old black sitcoms like Martin.
Lovecraft Country. I'd make Lovecraft Country
maybe.
one of those.
Lovecraft Country was great in many ways.
Because
that wasn't what I would think of. But
I think of it only because it repurposed our place in sci-fi.
Facts.
And Lovecraftian tales and all of that. That's the whole point.
Facts.
Also a precursor for an episode.
Yes. But maybe like when we think of like maybe even statistically coming down to like who watches it, I think may even matter. Because really like black sitcoms were made for black people.
Of course.
Let's be real. Like those are shows where they're not explaining.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on a newspaper page.
Now Family Matters.
Of a grand design, some people say.
I think a black sitcom. Stop it. That's enough. I think
there must be so much.
I think an example of maybe a black sitcom that was not made for black people might be The Cosby Show, right? But I think
really
facts.
Hold on, she's not wrong because that was his intention. He did not want to put a black family that was stereotyped already existing on television. So he made not a white
from
people.
What you just said.
Hold on, I kind of agree with her, but I don't agree fully. Here's the reason why: because he made something palatable that brought a universal attention to it. Like black people watched it and said, "Oh, when they have black moments, we get it." And then
what percentage of the time were there black moments?
There was a lot. I mean, from the first episode.
But there were black pockets of.
But Theo tried to be a white. Theo tried to be a white guy. He's like, how come you?
Hold on. I think that brings into question what are we trying to quantify as black moments and black
when it doesn't have to be explained.
When it doesn't have to be
justified.
When my existence as a person of color does not have to be explained.
You just know
because I felt like there's a lot of stuff in that where it's just like if you're not I think there's a difference between being in the streets and being
black.
No. Wow. I like that.
Sure.
But like being in the streets and being like if you're the Cosbys, you're represented as that upper echelon, legit 1% of 1%.
To show white people that we are not all like this that you've seen. This is how we're different, right? This is how, but we're still black, because the idea was like we're not like.
But
but we're still black.
Right. Before he was a criminal, he was considered America's dad.
Pulling himself up by the bootstraps, creating this idea where it's like we too can be American middle class. We too can be doctors.
But whose fault is that we were portrayed as nothing but thugs and criminals, though?
That's not true. It was the media.
Not even just that, but
because you had
what else were you by blue collar?
You had here's the perspective, right? At least based on if we're going into TV, you had shows that were Sanford and Son, Good Times, and then you had Jefferson's.
Blue collar.
They were not. They were moved on up. They were middle class, upper class.
Okay,
that was the whole point. Middle class, but
maybe middle class. Perhaps.
Then you had
maybe middle class.
That's
what we got.
Maybe middle class. You had shows like 227, which were definitely middle class. Amen, things like that. And then you had like What's Happening was back down a little bit.
But it doesn't always have to be like economic, like socioeconomic. It could
right,
also
but
like,
it's usually tied in though.
It's tied in.
Especially with
that's
the black
because
community.
That's the only way you really could identify us on television was based on our class. And
true, and also like language. Like I think that Will Smith is probably a good example of one that tried to meet both worlds. But ultimately, I think that even though black people love Fresh Prince, I think that Fresh Prince was also one of those shows that could also be digestible by white people.
Please stop.
That's enough. Could also be digestible for white people, where it tackled race sometimes when it needed to. But I think that shows like Fresh Prince. And Sister,
so you thought Fresh Prince was for white people?
I think that Fresh Prince was supposed to be that show that was for everybody. But shows like Martin and Living Single, I think,
Martin
were for black
people. For black people.
That was for black. Nothing was explained. It was like you either knew, you either got it, or you didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but Will Smith sort of like
because the characters that were for white people and Martin was like Bob.
And who the hell is Bob? I don't remember.
You don't remember it? Bob was like it was the character where he dressed up in whiteface.
Oh, okay.
Gina's coworker.
Oh, okay. I remember. Okay. Yep. Didn't even remember Bob. He wasn't even memorable to me. But like, I think that there are shows that I think that it also matters. Like, who is this show or piece of media written for? And I think that hearing Toni Morrison say like she wanted to create content that was not for where the white gaze was just not there in the background. I think that once she said that, or once I heard her say that, I'm just like, maybe I need to ask this question every time I see quote unquote black media. Even
who is this for?
Who is this actually for? Like 12 Years a Slave, as horrifying as that film was, and how that show I can't watch it. It just makes me cry. I don't think that it was for black people.
No,
I wouldn't disagree.
It was for white people.
Here's my question.
I want to stray away from that only just because I feel like that's going to be talked about in a later episode.
Well, but it ties into this idea of this responsibility because this responsibility that black media has and this scrutiny that black media comes under. When I think we should be asking, is it for black people?
And so here's my question. With that being an underlying question, when we think about the scrutiny of black media and or black edutainment, has there ever been something that has been for black edutainment?
The Harder They Fall.
Can you talk about that?
The Harder They Fall. That was the Western that was focused solely on all black
characters.
Is that
Western characters.
Wait a minute. Is that the one that had the character that was Idris Elba in it?
Elba, Jonathan Majors, Regina Hall.
The reason why I say that is because of solely on the opening line was these people existed.
Yes.
The reason why is because when you think about cowboys, you think about America's,
white folk,
pasty white people. I'm sorry, but them saying that these people existed is enough.
The drinks have been flowing,
right?
So.
But these people existed means that was directed at us, for people who don't read, for the people who don't read that history or are aware of that history. Everything from the soundtrack being just like procured to make you feel like the urbanness of it all, and then the westernness and the dated.
Who wrote
the
it?
Datedness,
James Samuel,
yes,
also known as The Bullet.
Who directed it?
James Samuel.
Also known as
James
The
James
Bullet.
hasn't he? I feel like I've heard of him before.
He did another Western that was early. He loves Westerns. He's
Yes.
a guy from across the pond, but he loves Westerns.
Maybe that's another episode.
Yeah.
Where is he from? He's English?
Yes,
Maybe that could be another episode.
we could talk about that.
Ooh.
We have feelings about that as well. But
Do we?
I
guess
do.
you guys do.
But
They
that
haven't
being
developed
said,
yet. You would say that film feels
that was for us.
okay.
I don't. I can go back and watch that movie. I've watched it already like 4 times. I will watch it again.
So I would say outside of that, because that was last year.
Most of Spike Lee's movies were made
Absolutely.
for black people.
Absolutely.
But
Despite
Within
that
the
be
with the
edutainment?
intent,
yes,
Malcolm X is definitely edutainment.
most
Sure.
of his films were entertainment.
Jungle Fever.
I would say like most
definitely,
of his films
yeah.
were
really,
about there was like
so-
a message or rather like even if it doesn't have to necessarily be historical in a way where it's like this is based on events that actually happened.
Well, see, and I think that's where I draw the line at edutainment. I think there's entertainment with a message. Like
No,
I
mean
I
actual
think
facts.
Transformers
Right.
had
Oh.
a message at the end
Actual
of it,
facts.
right?
So
That's
maybe
why I
so
say
maybe we have
edutainment.
maybe we're defining edutainment a little bit differently, and I think
Yeah.
like that's the challenge I think with black creatives in general is that there's always this like this
G.I.
weight
Joe.
over us that's like
We have to be factual,
or we
it
have
has
to tell
be
a story of the
purely
black
entertaining. Yeah.
it's like I can't name that many, if any, black created media that's like, oh, like the protagonist just happened to be black,
Right.
right? And the only thing that I can think of, movie or short film that I can think of, where the writer said, oh, they just happened to be black, and black people still got mad, was the short film written by the guy that did Hereditary. The guy that did There's Something About the Johnsons. I don't know if you ever saw that
That
short
was
film.
wild.
It was wild. And if that was made in 2022, this man would be canceled. But it came out right before people started really snapping. But even
That
still,
was
black people were upset with that.
wild.
And he was just, they were just like, well, why would you do that? And I was partially like, okay, well, yeah. But
I
also,
wasn't ready to cancel him, but I was like, this is a wild.
his
this is a
idea
wild
was like,
film.
yo, they just happen to be black. And also, like, part of me was like, that's a good point. Why aren't there any black characters that just happen to be black? Why does it always have to be centered around?
I mean,
why does
if
it
you-
always
if
this
you watching
pressure?
The Ring of Power, they just happen to be black.
They just be there, yeah. But that's not. It's not about the. I can't think of many films where the main character is black, and race has a is non-existent, or like their race doesn't really matter as much. I've heard like maybe Will Smith's films tend to gear more towards like, oh, Will Smith just happened to be a black guy. He could have been white, and it would have been just as effective, because Will Smith, in my opinion, is not the most black-centered
Sure.
actor, and which is why he's so successful. But I think
I mean, you could also make that the same argument for like The Rock, but
does The Rock say that he's black?
yes,
When?
he has said it.
When?
When it
Dad
was
is
convenient?
black.
When?
Is his dad black?
I
daddy
feel
was
like
black.
Is his dad African?
I feel like
His daddy was African American.
He reps like Polynesian.
He definitely reps Polynesian, but he's also black.
Sometimes I feel like it's like, yo, like when it's convenient.
I mean, that ambiguity.
He's also
Is that
not-
like Bruno Mars?
That
He's also-
ambiguity is
The Rock also is not a good actor, in my opinion. The Rock does not count
That's
to
not
me.
a conversation for this episode, but I don't disagree with you.
He's just Rock.
Um,
He just plays himself.
But I was thinking movies like The Black
When you
Klansman,
put it that way.
I haven't seen that. Maybe-
which
I
was
don't feel
also
like I need
Spike
to.
Lee's movie. I would argue that one's actually a better movie, but that's probably for another episode. But this was
Black
edutainment.
Klansman?
The Black Klansman was definitely edutainment because it was a true story.
Yeah.
And you know it it had strong relevancy at the time to what was going on in the nation.
So, but I will point out under the parameters in this limited space of 45 minutes, not really. In this roughly, but like in this limited in these limited parameters in time, we've had 2 Black Klansmen and The Harder They Fall, which are both good movies.
I also, like I
Like-
said, Malcolm X. I feel like Malcolm X was made for black people.
Judas and the Black Messiah.
made for white people.
You think so?
Solely. Because
Is that your home? Is that your home?
my home training?
Is that your
No.
homeschooling rearing its privileged head?
No. The reason why I feel like the majority of the black experience, and wherever you fall on that, that's on you. But the Judas and the Black Messiah, like he had already done a interview that was already like known worldwide, detailing the story. People already knew something was off when it came up in the news growing up, you know, like all of those things. So that story was really to educate white folks on.
I
But I didn't
might
know
disagree.
the story.
I might disagree because a lot of people do not know who Fred Hampton is.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of
Unfortunately.
our age group,
Even
may not.
older. I didn't start learning about Fred Hampton, I learned about Fred Hampton within the last decade.
Might be your homeschooling.
Probably less than that.
It's
But
privilege.
it's not privilege because I feel like if you're not being conscious about what you know,
But
and
if you
like-
don't know what you don't know,
right,
how are
but
you
I
going to go
also-
searching
And
for
that's
it?
my question. And I don't mean to cut you off, but that's my question is like, and I said this about SVU last time, but in my and my point was like,
It's not
if
this.
someone decides, all right, after I'm entertained but intrigued by this episode of SVU, if I go on my own and Google this story or decide, yo, I think I want to go to school for this or learn more, in some ways SVU was successful. So if I watch like The Woman King, or if I watch Judas and the Black Messiah, and I decide, okay, this was entertaining, but I want more, and I decide to go on my own and look into it, and I find things that are different, more things, then ultimately the film was successful and it worked.
in its message. or
So I
its
think the
intent.
question is, we need people to speak out against these films, or to say, hey, wait, that's not accurate, or hey, wait, this isn't quite right, because what it does is as annoying as it is, what it does is it allows people to say, let me look into this and see if this is actually right.
It
It
fosters
fosters-
this discourse in the research.
And we have to, unfortunately, we're in a world
Fair.
where first we get what's not real, and that is what or what's half real, and that's what drives us to find what's real.
I agree.
Fair.
And this is my final counterpoint. I think with movies that date back past how we can record history, so I would say anything 1920s and back. You know, everything's written down. There's no tapes. You know,
Nobody
no movie
converted
of
it
right.
to a floppy disk.
Right.
to
It's
the
not on
cloud.
Blu-ray. You can't convert it to
Not
Blu-ray.
a floppy disk.
But anything
Hell yeah.
anything from there and back for people of color, whenever these things come up in media, I think we should be grateful. If it's coming from a well-intended place and, you know, from people of color who want to see this story told, then yes, go watch it and be informed,
But do more.
and then do more.
Don't keep it there, right?
At the same time, we don't need another Rosa Parks story.
Did we get one yet?
We
Not yet, but we're
We about
due.
to, we, about, we about to get a Whitney Houston biopic now, soon, which is a
but
mess.
you know, you're
But we
also
don't
like,
read. Kids don't read. Kids get their information through movies and television and music.
I get that.
So if it
fault
has
is
to,
that?
if
But the
it's
responsibility,
maybe it's our fault for not meeting them where they are.
No, yeah, I get-
agree,
I
but
get
it's
that.
it's
I
also
just-
our responsibility
True.
because no longer can we rely on the generation before us because they were too busy, doing whatever they're doing, and then the generation before them, which would be our parents' generation,
mess.
they had a lot going on.
Which is why these critiques, as annoying as they are, they matter.
Right.
Because if nobody critiques it, then we might accept it all as truth.
And truth can be manipulated, and often is.
Especially if the audience is supposed to be white people. That is
Exactly.
when we really need to make sure.
Because these things
we
are
need to speak out.
are being made to be palatable so that white people don't feel as bad.
Yes, and if we believe it and we internalize it, then that is harmful, and
Yeah.
we don't even
That's
know
how
it.
'Cause
CRT gets canceled.
That's how CRT gets canceled. Yet
It's
no one
placating.
can define it.
Yeah, it's placating at the strongest level.
So I
So-
think
No
I
one
think
can
these
define
critiques,
it.
these think pieces, even though a lot of people are just doing it just to get some views, just to get some clout, or just to start a riot, I think that we need them.
I agree.
This has been a
Because
great
we
episode.
disagreed for a moment there. There was a moment
Well,
where
I think there is a
because we all came
you
at the
have to
table at a
all
different
use-
direction.
You have to use the same measuring stick,
Right.
and to get to
I don't think
that,
we were.
Yeah.
I don't think we should
I
have
also don't-
defined it, which is why I asked, what is edutainment, right? We
Right.
kind of have
Sure.
to define it
Right.
so that we can all create our answers.
But I think even then, approaching it at the different perspectives makes sense because not everybody's going to. Who's the intended audience, right?
Right.
It's not always the case.
That's
it may
true.
not be for me. It may be for you. It may be for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
you
a
know,
good point.
It could be for the person that read the book and didn't,
Yeah, and ultimately, it's like, yo, like, just take anything that involves gaining significant amounts of profit with a grain of salt.
grain of salt.
If you just want to be entertained, like, yo, that was great, I
Because
enjoyed that.
producers be
And that's
having
it.
some
That's
last
good.
says. They be like, hey, throw that in there.
Producers might be having a lot of last.
If your goal is just to be like, that was fun, then these movies are doing a great job. But if your goal is to like, hey, I want to learn something and then tell my neighbor, or I want to continue
I
this
thought this was
conversation,
a documentary. Like,
right? And that's the problem. We're giving too much credit and too much responsibility to these
Ooh,
films.
This isn't supposed to be a documentary.
Right.
It's just to make me like. It's just to create the to get the serotonin.
I don't want to continue this on, but that I think but is that a question for the critics, or is like, to your point, I think it's great that you made a very excellent point and statement and fight for like, this is why we need critics. At the same time, critics, hey, this is not a documentary. This is edutainment,
Right.
or this is entertainment, whatever it may be.
But
this is not a documentary.
Critics, sometimes the role of a
edutainment
critic
shouldn't be real.
is just to make sure that it gets screened to go on to the academy, like to continue to perpetuate the machine of just like,
True.
hey, this is up for
That's my point. That's
This is-
my
this
reason.
is
Is
the
that
intention.
ultimately
So I
it's
think
about
that
profit.
it's the
I
machine.
think there's. Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's the milling them out.
I'm talking
profit is
about.
first.
I'm thinking about the smaller. I'm thinking about the critics who
You're
like
talking about us.
the BuzzFeed.
the BuzzFeeds, the people who have like
The
these
Guardian.
one shots,
Right.
like, you know what I mean, like where it's like
New York Post says.
Oh,
where
not the New York Post.
It almost seems like you're hating just for hating's sake,
Right.
Where it'd be different if you're like, hey, just want to let you guys know, this is not, you know what I mean?
They gotta
sometimes
write
both.
these reviews in
Sometimes
20
both.
minutes.
Sometimes like, yo, I'm trying to get some followers. I'm trying to get some feet,
Exact-
but I'm also
But
trying to
then-
like say something that's very real. And then it's just like this domino effect where other people start writing.
Clickbait.
Then it's
you
all
know.
then what's the
Profit.
intent of your article?
Profit.
Profit.
Oh, profit.
Clicks,
all what it-
clicks mean views. Views mean paid.
On that
Conversation
note,
means
don't
I go
forget
back.
to like, comment, and subscribe because that helps
Click
the
on this
Because
algorithm.
link.
profit.
We really trying to not have to do these jobs anymore and sit
I have
in
2
front of a
jobs,
mic.
y'all. I don't want 2 jobs.
Yeah. The one job is to be right here,
Yeah.
giving you guys what you want.
Because us millennials, we were born a little
not
bit
work.
too soon for
Right?
this.
Or too late.
Too soon and too late.
That's what
All
it
the
is.
little young boys
We're
out here.
both. Yo, we are
Both.
We're right in the cusp. Like we're not
With
allowed
an
to do
F.
the Gen Z dances, but we also can't do radio because radio don't exist no more.
I'm kind of glad for not doing
Shout out
it.
to Charlamagne. Anyway, as we always like to say here, y'all have a blessed night. Peace.